I want to talk to you about the Rampart Report, the investigation into Washington State Representative Matt Shea, which came out a couple of weeks prior to Christmas. So here's the subject of my talk tonight. This is the victim, poor Matt Shea. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Okay, he's been hollering for a few weeks now. He's had all of his little cult followers come out and protest that he knew nothing about the takeover of Malheur. He's innocent, blah, blah, blah. The interesting thing to note about this is that had you asked any of these cult followers prior to a couple of weeks ago who Matt Shea was, they all to a person said, oh, Matt Shea? I don't know Matt Shea. I never heard of Matt Shea. I have a lot of evidence. I don't want to make these videos too long because they kind of get a little tedious for me and you both. So I'll do this kind of in a couple of in a series. That might be easier for everyone because on top of everything I'm going to give you tonight, I've also got dozens and dozens and dozens of screen captures of Maureen Peltier, facilitating discussions between Michelle Fiore, Cope Reynolds, Anthony Bosworth, and Matt Shea. So there's a whole lot of evidence, quite the contrary to what all of these Neanderthals sit and spew on Facebook and social media, how innocent everything is. It's really not. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is the Rampart Group report. Plenty of copies and links of it on the internet you can take a look at. And just to let you know how extensive this report was. First off, the report took about 5 months for the Rampart Group to do. I'm going to read you a couple of pages here. Okay, so in their methodology, they conducted over 34 interviews of witnesses and other sources of information to include senior law enforcement officials, elected officials, former associates of Representative Shea, political opponents, and other sources of information and concerned citizens. So I know several of the people that they interviewed because I helped facilitate some of those interviews. I don't mind saying. A lot of people have come to me throughout the past 4 years and told me their horrific stories about how they've been attacked and silenced by Matt Shea and his little group of cronies. So as far as like the actual physical evidence that they examined, they collected, researched, and reviewed and analyzed over 46 gigabytes of data totaling over 120,000 electronic communications, online data, and other documents, and linking pertinent information to the timeline of events and witness statements. So this wasn't just going onto Facebook and looking at a couple of crazy Matt Shea posts or a couple of crazy Shea Diwali readout news, which is Matt Shea's propaganda news disseminator. Please go ahead and take a look in the dictionary at what a readout is. Trust me, the crusty little troll Shea Diwali did not come up with this terminology. Okay, this is Shea. This is his army training, which he has now converted into holy jihad war against those of us that disagree with his view of how a theological state/country should be ran. Many of his protestations, let's get going here on the documentation. So one of the communications that he put out, he says, as the subject of this investigation, I have been denied any opportunity to review and respond to its results, which are still unknown to me. And he starts talking about due process is the right of every citizen. All right, so let's address those. So here in the Rampart Report, Section D, it states, declination of interview by Representative Shea. So Matt Shea actually was given the opportunity to speak on his behalf. Representative Shea declined to be interviewed in this investigation. Investigators afforded Representative Shea an opportunity to answer public allegations made against him in news media and online reporting that became a focus of this investigation, as well as to respond to allegations made by witnesses and documentary evidence collected as of late September 2019. Shea was given plenty of opportunity to be involved in this entire process. He declined. Now he's going to whine about it like a third grade little girl? After several attempts to reach Representative Shea through phone calls, email messaging, and certified letters, on September 26th of 2019, Rampart Group investigator received a call from attorney Mark Lamb, responding on behalf of Representative Shea. And it says, let's see, discussion included the scope of the investigation, time frame, and logistics of which the investigator assured could occur at a date, time, and location of Shea's choosing prior to the conclusion of the investigation on December 1. Mr. Lamb agreed to discuss the request for interview with Representative Shea and respond to the investigator. No further contact was received from Mr. Lamb or Representative Shea. Investigators concluded Representative Shea declined the request for interview. Again, he had plenty of opportunity to be involved in this process, to stand up and defend himself. All right, let's talk about his little whiny crybaby. Oh, due process is supposed to be afforded to everyone. Well, as an attorney, Matt, you know that due process starts in the courtroom. You haven't been arrested. You haven't been indicted. You're not in any kind of a lawsuit. So what due process do you want to happen at this point? As you well know, as an attorney, there's a process. And C has to follow B and B has to follow A. There are steps and there's an order to this, okay? So you go out and you whine and cry because that's your methodology to all of your low IQ followers about due process, because that's been a key buzzword, a magic marble word over the past 4 years. Most of these people don't even know what due process is. So, you know, I hope all of this eventually comes back and bites you right square in the butt for the way that you've manipulated, you've exerted your control, your views, your cult into all of these trials that have taken place. And quite frankly, you've subverted the law. You ought to be in prison, in my opinion. But I follow the law, so I'll wait until we go through all the steps. I will see you there one day. I'm confident of that. So he had all of his little flying monkeys come out and jump to his defense. And it's the same flying monkeys that we've been watching for years. Here's Moo, good old Staff Sergeant Moo. Okay, so she comes out and she says, please keep Washington State Rep. Matt Shea in your prayers. Grossly false mainstream media accusations that Mr. Shea helped to plan the wildlife refuge. How does she know? I mean, this is what's astounding, is these people think that they know everything. Again, let me remind you, several weeks prior to Christmas, if you'd asked these people who Matt Shea was, all of them denied even knowing him. Now all of a sudden, they know his deepest, innermost thoughts and activities. She goes on to further declare, he had zero, and that's in bold right there, zero. He had zero idea or involvement. Sorry, Moo, we're going to prove otherwise. And it is a fact he is innocent. Well, gee, Moo, don't you know? Matt Shea says that he has to have due process. You can't come out and declare a conclusion without him having his due process first. God. Okay, also, let's do a little sidebar here. So Moo and Porky Patrick are in collusion with Morgan Philpoot and now felon Rick Kerber, who's now started his prison sentence of 15 years. They've defrauded courts. I mean, these guys are clowns. They'll lie, cheat, and steal about anything. They have no morals whatsoever. Lie, cheat, and steal. That's their modus operandi. So Philpoot, like I said, this little sidebar, Philpoot got in trouble with the judge in the Kerber case because he had actually paid Moo and Porky Patrick to go deliver some documents, and they back created a company and charged, I don't know, 100 times the rate, according to the judge, of what Philpoot could have just paid, you know, the United States Postal Service $50 to deliver. So these guys are just nothing but criminals. They're scam artists, and they will lie, cheat, and steal about anything. You know, Moo, who always thinks that she's the bottom line in everything in Poot Kingdom, says, I have not had a chance to look further into this. So she makes a declarative statement that it is a fact he is innocent, but I have not had a chance to look further into this. Why do you people follow someone so stupid? It's astounding. So then we go into, she's linked a screen capture of Crybaby Shea trying to compare himself to President Trump. It's called My Initial Response. Like we are seeing with our president, this is a sham investigation meant to silence those of us who stand up against attempts to disarm and destroy our great country. The only one attempting to destroy and disarm is you and your little cult group, Shady Shea. You took over a legally elected, or you attempted to take over a legally elected political group in Oregon. You took over a federal bird refuge. You guys are clowns. This is all going to come back and bite you in the butt. You are so lucky I don't have a law degree yet. So lucky. So the next little flying monkey to come out is Blow. We all know Blow. Okay, so remember, Blow was pissed off that Ammon took over and hijacked his March for the Hammonds back in January 2016. So ever since then, he's been trying to become the wingman to Ammon. Hasn't really worked out in his favor. He's really never quite caught on. And he's kind of dumber than a box of doorknobs. So he writes a letter to Sheriff Ozzie. Quick sidebar again, Sheriff Ozzie is actually a conservative and is very familiar with the cult activity that takes place up in the Pacific Northwest. Very aware of Marble, very aware of Shea and the Birds. The Birds are a new name some of you may not have heard. I'll give you some resources to research them later. You might want to go on Facebook and look at a group called Birds of a Feather. They've actually put out quite extensive information on Annenberry Bird and their Christian dominionism and Christian identity. These two old weirdos have been at this for decades, changed the names of their little cult many times. I've often likened this whole movement and what their objective is to M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. If you haven't seen it, strongly recommend it. Go check it out. So Blow writes this open letter to Sheriff Ozzie, and he says, I mean, come on, this is like so ridiculous. 1.5 pages of Blow blowing. He says, my life and my friends and family have been put in danger by your frivolous and fraudulent comments. Now, wait a minute, Blow. Are you sure it's not been put in danger because you're actually an idiot and you identify yourself as being part of some pseudo-militia and you run around decking yourself out in camouflage and carrying a long gun in inappropriate places just so that you can post up and show what a tough guy you are at 4 foot high? I mean, I'm sorry, but my 10-year-old nephew is more of a man than you are. Blow further kind of discredits himself, in my opinion. He wants to be, you know, such a hero, but right here he states, I was not at Bunkerville. Of course you weren't, because you're a coward. And then he also says, I did not spend the night at the refuge because I knew that was the most dangerous issue at hand. You're a coward. Crawl back in your hole. Anyway, he's not even worth commenting. But so we've got Moo, we've got Blow, all coming out in defense of Shea. Now, it's interesting. I'm actually blocked by Matt Shea. I've been blocked for years. Matt doesn't like the fact that I come out and speak against him. And if you recall, I did a video a while back where I met Shea in 2016, and we met for 45 minutes, and during that time frame, no less than 9 times did he ask me to retract any negativity that I had stated about cows. His Coalition of Western States was just another moniker for the exact same movement, which is a theological cult brainstormed by Annenberry Bird. So Shea comes out. He's got another, response to the sham investigation. So he talks about, oh no, $100,000 of taxpayer money. It's actually $120,000, but who gives a crap? Because you people over the past 4 years have grifted hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yeah, we know whose pocket went into. Moo, Cunty, all of you. You're a bunch of clowns. The funnest one I thought was when you grifted over $100,000 from Mike Arnold. He didn't even represent Ammon Bundy, and then he quits law and becomes a pot farmer. That's hilarious. So he talks about $100,000 of taxpayer money. Big deal. You guys have robbed more than that over the past 4 years. A modern star chamber. You got to add drama in. And Shea is a pro at drama. Let's see. Then he says it's no coincidence that the report was released a day after the impeachment vote. Again, he figures if he likens himself to Donald Trump, that'll get him the sympathy vote. He's nothing like Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually follows the law. That's why none of the Democrats have been able to get him on anything. All they've done is a constant harassment for the entire time of his presidency, and that's about all they'll get. The man is not easily intimidated. Shea just wants to grab onto Trump's coattails and act like this is some deep state movement. Look, if this guy does anything with a degree of expertise, it's deflect, propagandize, and play the victim, which is what all of these people in this fake patriot community do. The only kind of a patriot they are is the PayPal patriot kind. Let's see, then down in his third paragraph, he talks about, in our country, if someone wants to accuse you of a crime, they must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Well, again, we're getting there, buddy. Just hang on. You'll have plenty of time to scream like a third grade girl in a house full of spiders. As I said, it's a process. It takes time. These things don't happen overnight, but we're getting there. So you might want to save some of your drama so that Cunty can come and do fake jail cells for you and, talk about Gadiant and robbers, which she has no idea or clue about since it comes from Mormon theology. But hey, whatever. She needs her attention. She's, Joan of Arc. Anyway, he's got all kinds of, it's a page, a couple sentences. No big deal. Let's see. Then he came out with another post where he's talking about Adrian Sewell. This one is 3 posts, 4 parts, talking about Adrian Sewell. Well, here's a funny thing. See, I'm actually personal friends with Adrian Sewell. I was at Adrian Sewell's ranch when Shea sent Cope Reynolds and a couple of dummies, a father and son team, to guard Adrian's ranch while he was at Malheur. I know all about Shea, his little faux security guards, and I know Adrian Sewell very well. And actually, I've discussed with Adrian doing a live stream with me and explaining exactly what I've already been telling you. He'll confirm it. And also the fact that he doesn't want anything to do with these idiot sticks. As soon as I started telling him what was actually happening and how badly they were trying to recruit him, not once but twice, if you'll remember, it was Adrian, myself, and 2 other people that were actually in Kanab at Lavoyd's funeral. And we busted in on one of their cows meetings where Ann and Barry Bird were there, Matt Shea, Cope Reynolds. I'm sorry, Matt Shea was not there. Cope Reynolds, Anthony Bosworth. They were all there trying to recruit Adrian, had invited him over. And instead, we busted in and told them we wanted the guns back from the refuge that Anthony Bosworth had gone and picked up and has squirreled away in a cache somewhere. Pretty sure the ATF would be interested in that. So if anybody listening to this video knows where the cache is, that Bosworth and Reynolds and Shea have, let me know. I'll get you in touch with the right people. This is Matt Shea not looking guilty with the junior Team Rugged that he put together and recruited. Again, let me reference back to another video I did where I told you that I sat in on a meeting with Bill Good that he called with Tom Davis right after the 2016 Father's Day shindig up in Burns, and they are recruiting these young men because Shea's idea is to have provost marshals. Now, those are military police, for those of you that don't know, but he wants to have provost marshals to patrol the walls of his compound. So they want to start out with the State of Liberty or Redoubt. I mean, they've got a dozen names for it. It's how they keep people off, dumb people off track of what they're doing, is they just keep changing the names of things, and they have code names for everything. It's all very, 7-year-old boy club stuff, Here's a picture of, you'll see in the red circle here. This is Ann and Barry Bird. This is when they were forming cows in 2014 at Bunkerville. So Ann and Barry Bird are never far behind. I've met them. they're a joke. Here, this is from Birds of a Feather. This is a post by the moderator on there, Scott Christiansen. He says, Marble leaders Barry and Ann Bird have been very careful about getting seen or heard on social media. Barry paid dearly for his taking part in the Remnants Resolve publication and learned his lesson. Stay low-key and work behind the scene. For example, the Birds took part in the formation of COWS, Coalition of Western States, but they were never listed as members. Here's a screenshot of them at the formation of COWS. So that was a screenshot I just showed you. I've met Ann and Barry Bird. They're a joke. They're kind of creepy. Okay. Tiny mention for Cunty because, you know, the only way the woman still gets any kind of views or traction is if she mentions my name. I'm going to start sending her a bill every time she mentions my name. Here she's, you know, oh, don't talk to Melissa Lauder, blah, 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 whatever. She's so boring. Anyway, Matt wants to sit there and say how he's innocent. This is all, you know, some kind of smear campaign, blah, blah, blah. Well, if it's a smear campaign, why do you, I mean, this guy has dozens and dozens and dozens of documents and private conversations. They used to use the app Wicker a lot. Everything they want to do is all super secret squirrel, and it has to be super encrypted so that nobody can see or hear what they're doing. Here's a little email list from the Rampart Report. They've all got code names. My favorite down here, Michelle Fee Horry, codename Mambrosino. Now, if you look up Mambrosino, it's interesting to note that there's some doctor, Abramacino or something, or they're from New York. Well, guess where Michelle is from? New York. She's the Brooklyn fraud. TikTok. Time is coming for all of you. So Shea's got all his flying monkeys coming to his defense. He's got his own propaganda publication, Readout News, coming to his defense. I mean, this is like so funny. It's hilarious. These are the same people that always gripe that, oh, the police can't investigate the police because that's not impartial. Well, Matt's using his own propaganda publication to state that this is all a witch hunt and it's a fraud and, hey, look at me, I'm just like Donald Trump. No, you're not. You're a loser. Here's another propaganda piece of crap. He went on some show called Rice Spokane Perspective. Okay, so these two are LARPers, live action role playing, that they're some kind of radio personalities. So I called these idiot sticks. Mike Fagan, I don't know who the other guy is. I actually don't know which one is Mike Fagan. But anyway, I called these guys and emailed them. I said, hey, you want to talk about Matt Shea? And you guys are investigative reporters? Give me a call. Guess what? Didn't hear back from either of them. Oh, here's the funniest one. Here's his biggest defender, Mr. Flat Earther. Okay, let me tell you about narcissists. Brand Thornton is a flat earther. He's been excommunicated from the LDS Church. He will show up, say anything, do anything, whatever he can, because his prime objective is to get his name in print or his picture in print. He really, like, that just strokes his ego. He couldn't wait to tell me about the book Shadowlands and how many times he was mentioned and how he gave an interview and he was the only one that would give the guy an interview and look how many pages I'm on, blah, 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 blah. So he comes out like Moo, because together the two of them don't have one brain cell to tie their own shoelaces. He says, Matt Shea was not the brains of the Malheur occupation, blah, blah, blah. He also mentions my name in this because I've been telling him for years that cows orchestrated the whole thing. So Thornton thinks that he was at every single planning meeting. He was everywhere. Let me tell you what the real truth is. So Thornton stayed in the Carp House, which is where Ammon and Ryan, Cavalier, and McConnell were all staying. And the fact of the matter is that he sat and played on social media all day long. His son Nick was there. He was trying to watch out for Nick. Nick was one of the security guards. Nick wasn't getting a lot of sleep, so this was a dangerous situation for all involved. But Brand was on social media constantly, nonstop. That's all he did. Hardly ever left the Karp house. I checked with Cavalier, and he said that the Bundys didn't trust Thornton. And I personally myself heard Ryan turn to me one time and he goes, "Now what's that guy's name again?" So, Brand has inserted himself in every possible aspect that he can. He goes out and he blows a dead animal's horn because he knows it gets him attention. He makes declarative statements. He thinks God's talking to him too. I wish God would tell him the earth is round. So anyway, Matt comes out with another post that says, "Some media outlets are seeing through this." That's freaking hilarious, because the media outlet he's talking about is no media outlet. Again, it's readout propaganda. There you go, same picture. Okay, by Sherry Troll. Let's talk about this, because we already heard Matt say this exact same thing, right? Taxpayer money, number one. What was the first thing that I told you that Matt Shea was griping about? Taxpayer money. Point number two. Let's see if we can get this. Parallels between the witch hunt of Donald Trump and myself. What was the second point that I told you that Matt Shea put out? Exact same one. Readout propaganda is Matt Shea. I don't know how many times I have to say it. All right, so wrapping it up. This is as tiring for me as it is for you. So what Matt and his little group of cretins has engaged in is actually sedition. It's the Smith Act. So let me explain to you what sedition is, and we'll see if Matt actually is engaged in sedition. The Smith Act of 1940 made it a criminal offense to knowingly or willfully to advocate, abet, advise, or teach the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing the government of the United States or of any state by force or violence, or to organize any association that teaches, advises, or encourages such an overthrow, or to become a member of or to affiliate with any such association. Okay, you've got cows. There's his affiliation and association of his little club, Coalition of Western States. You've got him advising because cows had the long phone call with Stephen Grassi. You had Michelle Fiore on there. You had Heather from up in Idaho. She's codenamed Green Bean. I mean, these guys have engaged in sedition. They planned on overthrowing the government of Oregon. We'll see where this goes, but if it were me and I had the opportunity to prosecute this creep and his little bundle of goons, I would only begin with sedition. I'd have about a dozen other charges that I would throw on there. This guy would never see the light of day again. So there you go. Look up the Rampart Report, and Matt Shea's full of crap and he's a whiny little bitch.